Hello, today we are going to be dividing fractions with models. We already learned how to divide fractions using the standard algorithm, and today we're just going to take that and demonstrate it in a different way by using a visual model. The essential question that you should be able to answer by the time we're done with this lesson is, what is another way I can demonstrate dividing fractions? Our standard that we are focusing on today is 6NS1. And once again, by the time we're done, you should be able to use a visual model to divide fractions. A visual model. Now, I think it's always good to have lots of different strategies or ways to solve problems so that we can do whichever one is the easiest and use the appropriate manner that we need at the time. Okay, so pause the video if you need to record the or write down the essential question and the topic. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Now, you'll notice we have in our notes some tape models, fraction tapes. And what I've done is I have this question, 3/4 divided by 1/8. Now, let's look at this first model that we have here, this tape. And you'll notice it's one whole piece here. But this whole piece is divided into 4 different sections. That's because we're looking at 3/4, which means that it has to be divided into fourths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this one whole and I'm going to divide it so that we're actually just demonstrating the 3/4 that is actually what we have. So if I had, for example, if this was a candy bar, I only have 3/4 of the candy bar left. Somebody ate 1/4 of it and it's gone. So I'm going to show what I have. I have this fourth, and we're using colored pencils today to take these notes. You're going to eventually need 4 different colors to take the notes. So there's 1/4. And this is 2/4. So that's 2/4. And finally, we have 3/4. So once again, this is 2/4. And all together we have 3/4. 3/4 of our whole piece is highlighted or colored, showing what we have. Now, we want to divide this, though, into eighths. So in order to do that, I'm going to take the same size that we have above. So see how it stops here on our model? Underneath, I'm going to show in the second model that it stops here as well. I'm not counting this part because remember, that's like the part of the candy bar that was bit off. It's gone. So this is parts I don't have. I'm only going to look at the section that I have, which is from here to here. But I want to divide that not into fourths like it is up above. I want to divide that into eighths. So what I'm going to look at is, how do I divide this tape? This one's in fourths. How do I divide it into eighths down here? Well, I'm going to see that, look, if I divide each of my fourths in half, I end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces. So I just divide my fourths into half, and now I have eighths. So I'm going to color the same amount of space that I have up above. I'm going to color it below. I'm going to use a different color just to show, to represent it's the same size piece. So you see that it's colored, the same amount of space is colored below. But down here, I have it divided into eighth pieces. So here's an eighth and here's an eighth. And when I add these 2 eighths together, I get that I actually have fourths. It's just divided into smaller pieces. Let me see if I can use a different pen. So this is a 1/8, this is a 1/8, a 1/8, 1/8, and so forth. So now all I have to do is, in order to figure that out, when I'm dividing 3/4 by 1/8, all I'm doing is trying to figure out how many 1/8 pieces are in 3/4 that I have. So let's count how many 1/8 pieces are up in this piece. I have 1, I have 2, I have 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 1/8 pieces in 3/4 of a bar. So I know that 3/4 divided by 1/8 equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Now, I like to show how if I use the standard algorithm, I'm going to get the same answers. So if I take 3/4 and divide by 1/8, and I use our keep, change, flip model, and I keep the first fraction the same, change my operation from division to multiplication, flip to the reciprocal, 8 over 1. I'm going to cross out some products here. I'm going to take this and go 4 divided by 2 is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. I can actually even go further and go 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And I can go 3 times 2 is 6. Over 1 times 1 is 1, which simplifies to 6. Do you see how I got the same answer using both the model and the standard algorithm? Both work. Now, typically in regular math when you're doing this, you get to choose which way you want to solve it, unless I actually ask you to demonstrate using a model. If I ask you to demonstrate using the model, you need to use the model. And we will have some tasks that will require you to do it that way. So you have to be able to show me both ways, but if I don't require it, you can choose the one that works best for you. Let's do another example. This next section we have 1/2 divided by 3/4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color in what I have. I know I have 1 whole. I have 1 whole. And then I have 1/2 of a whole. So I'm going to go to this piece and do 1/2 of a whole. So that's what I have currently. I have 1 whole and then 1/2. All right. Now I want to divide this into 3/4 pieces. So I want to find out how many 3/4 pieces I have in 1 1/2. So to do that, I'm going to color first the exact same space to represent that the size of my piece that I'm dividing into doesn't change. So I still have 1 whole here. And I still have the 1/2 here. My size hasn't changed on both examples, or both models. It's the same size piece that I have. The difference is going to be that I'm going to divide it into smaller pieces. So what I'm looking at now is 3/4. Well, if you notice, I took this whole, and up above we divided into halves. Well, down below, I knew that if I divide 1/2 again, I'm going to get into fourths. So I took my same whole number and I divided it into 1/4 pieces. So this is 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. Notice that 4/4 still make 1 whole. It's the same size. It's just I'm dividing it a little different. Here's 1/4 and here's 1/4. So now what I want to do is I want to count. Now I'm not counting how many fourths are in there. I'm counting how many 3/4 are in there. So I'm going to count the 3/4 sections that I have. By doing that, I'm just going to count up my fourths. I have 1, 2, 3. This section here makes up 1/3. So now I'm going to count how many other 3/4 I've got. Here's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Those 3 pieces together make up also a 3/4. So class, how many 3/4 pieces do I have? 2. Thanks, Trace. Do you see how I counted 1 3/4, 3/4 pieces, and then another 3/4 piece? It's okay they're not in the same whole. See, this one's in this piece and this one's in this piece. That's okay. I'm just counting how many fourths are in there total. So this means that if I take 1.5 and I divide it by 3/4, I'm going to get 2 pieces. And that's your answer. Now, you can do this another way by creating a number line and demonstrating the same type of a problem on a number line. So to do that, let's look at the third problem. On the third problem, I'm going to take 2 1/4 and divide it by 1/4. So on my top number line, I'm going to count over to 2 1/4. Well, if you notice, it's already divided into 1/4 sections. There's 4 fourths that make up 1, and then there's another 4 that make up 2. So I'm going to go all the way to 1, 2 wholes, and I'm going to go to 1/4 beyond that. So from here to here, that section is 2 1/4. 1 whole, 2 whole, and then a 4th more. Now I'm going to divide that into fourths. To do that, I'm going to go the same distance, the same distance over. So see here and here, it's the same. But now I'm going to divide it into different pieces. I want to divide it into 1/4 chunks. Well, if you notice, this section right here is a 1/4. That makes up 1/4. How do I know that? Because the whole is divided into 4 of those sections. That tells me that that whole is divided into 1/4. So we need to count how many of those sections we have. So let's count. Here's 1. You can count with me, class. 2, 3, 4 in the 1. Keep going. 5, 6, 7, 8. We're at the 2, right? And then 1 more, right? So how many did we have? 9. So we know that 2 1/4 divided by 1/4 equals 9. The key is to just show on the top model and the bottom that you have the same size piece. You're just dividing it into smaller pieces within it. On page 35 of your journal, you are going to be doing 2 more practice problems. One is using a number line, and the other is using a tape graph. When you do this, guys, I want you to look at word problems and follow this method. When you do a word problem, I want you to first circle when you're reading the number and then underline the words that go with it. How much chocolate will each person get if 3 people have to share 1/2 pound of chocolate equally? And your question here is, how much chocolate will each person get? Alright? So we're going to be dividing 1/2 pound of chocolate. So if here is 1 whole pound, we're going to do 1/2. Don't move. So this would be your 1/2 pound. And now you're going to divide it into 1/3 pieces. Alright, so I want you to finish this on your own, demonstrate what you know, and you can have a fantastic day. Thank you.